You know, sometimes in this story, you get a single panel in a chapter that really exemplifies that picture's worth 1,000 words, phrase. It really does. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be a double page spread. I mean, don't get me wrong, Oda does some phenomenal double page spreads. The one that comes to mind right away is Blackbeard's speech to Luffy during Jaya. A man's dream will never end, or the era of when men dream will never end. And like most of the entire panel, it's actually kind of like similar to the way Kubo draws things with that particular one, where it's just the characters and the background is all whited out, but the impact, it's palpable, it's there. But sometimes you could have panels in a chapter that are not giant, bombastic, double-page spreads, but still carry a lot of weight. The Nothing Happens scene from Thriller Bark was not a giant double-page spread, and it looked really cool. Another one that maybe people don't bring up as much, but means a lot to me personally, is at the very end of chapter 597, so like right before the time skip, when Luffy takes off his straw hat and just sets it on that rock at Ruskaina, and then it pans out as Luffy goes to train with Rayleigh, and you just see the hat on the rock just kind of fluttering in the wind a little bit. Oda adds a lot of detail. You can even see the marks where Buggy stabbed the hat way back in Orangetown, as the time skip begins. That's a really powerful panel to me. And the mural, obviously, in Elbaf is another one that was a double page spread, which was insane. But in the last chapter, I think we got one that's going to be a contender for a long time. We got the scene in chapter 1155 where Roxy Zebek is hanging out in the flower room with Emu. Also, Gunko's there as well. Whatever. Hi, Gunko. Hope we learn about your backstory at some point. And Rox is just chilling out. Is he sitting on something? Did he bring a chair? How much of a boss do you have to be to bring a fold-out chair like you bring to a concert into the flower capital? Not the flower capital, that's Wano. Into the flower room. Well, in the flower capital, too. He busts out a chair and sits right next to Momonosuke. I got some plans for Wano. No, he goes into the flower room, pops out a chair, sits down, pulls out a gun, and is just like, how you doing? Like, that's the scene. I mean, there's so much energy, as the new phrase would be. There's so much aura. It's like, okay, so I just want to break down this, like, page and a half today, if that's good for you, because, like, there's a lot to discuss in just the lead up into this, okay? So let's start here. This is a big question. Did Rox even know that Emu existed? Like, is the whole reason he went to the Reverie, broke into Marijois, into Castle Pangea, into the flower room, was specifically to encounter Emu, because he learned about Emu beforehand, and had a plan involving him, right? I could see that either both ways, because it does say he's a big fan of Davy Jones, and Davy Jones, see, this is the thing, you want to say Davy Jones was the first pirate, right? Because that's like the story and the folklore and everything like that. He started the Davy Back fight on Pirate Island and all that stuff. It's like, oh, Davy Jones was the first pirate, matey. But we have confirmation from Vegapunk that Joy Boy was in fact the first pirate. So unless Joy Boy turns out to be Davy Jones, why couldn't Joy Boy turn out to be Davy Jones? I'm going to write that down. Somebody write that down. Joy Boy equals Davy Jones. I actually don't see a single problem with that. I'm assuming Joy Boy was not his given name. I'm assuming that's not what he was, the title he was born with, okay? I'm sure his actual name is like, oh, little baby Davy. There you go, Davy Jones. All right, awesome, perfect. It's also the real name of David Bowie. His original name was David Jones. He had his name for, like, purposes later because there was somebody else named David Jones, and that's where David Bowie came from. So, nice little piece of music trivia there. But anyway, yeah, so if he knew about Emu beforehand, right, it does make sense why he would go through such lengths. Now, it's possible he might not have known about Emu, and then when he got to the Holy Land, then he learned about their existence. And the reason for that is that Rox very clearly wants to rule the world. So let's assume he did not know about Emu, but he still wants to rule the world. Well, in either case, you would still go to Marijois because the people that rule the world, ostensibly, that are, like, official, that everybody in the world knows about, would be the Gorosei, right? Oh, the world is not ruled by a single person. That's, you know, the empty throne and the symbolism and the power of that. It's actually ruled by a committee of 5 old dudes named the 5 Elders, okay? So you could even see it from the perspective of Rock's like, I'm gonna go murder the Gorosei. I'm gonna kill the 5 Elders, right? Shouldn't be that hard. They're a bunch of old men. This was before the time of William, so Rox had to just improvise, right? But then he goes to, you know, we actually didn't even see the Gorosei at all during this flashback, so I don't know what they were up to while Rox broke into the flower room or something like that. Yeah, so he could have showed up and then confronted the Gorosei in the room of authority and be like, ah ha ha, I'm Rox D. Zebek. All I gotta do is off you 5 old dudes and then I take over the world. Sounds easy to me. And then maybe Emu shows up. And maybe Emu invited Rox into the flower room. Although it does say someone infiltrated the Chamber of Flowers. It does. We're not gonna lose the impact of that scene by having Emu show up and be like, let us chat in my flower room. That doesn't seem to be the case. It seems like Rox broke in, okay? So it could have been that too. It could have been like, you know, trying to kill the Gorosei, and then he learns about like, oh no, there's actually somebody higher than the Gorosei. It's like, all right, well, where's that person at? Down the hall, second door on the right. It's hidden behind a fake wall, but you can find it. It's like, all right, and then Rox breaks into the flower room and just like, all right, I hear you're the king of the world. This makes this easy. I don't know. So that's the first question. Did Rox even know? Next question, how did Rox go about breaking into Marijois? Now, is it difficult to gain access to the Holy Land? Yes and no. If you're a normal citizen in the One Piece world, it's going to be fairly difficult. Rox was not a normal citizen in the One Piece world. Remember, like, even the revolutionaries did not have that much of a problem getting into the Reverie. Sabo basically just, you know, dressed up. He, like, knocked out a guard and put on the armor. It's like D&D 101 right there, right? It's just like, oh, we need to get into the Lord's castle. It's like, all right, I roll stealth, sneak behind one of the guards, knock his ass out, put on his armor, and I walk in. It's basically what Sabo did, and it worked really well. If you can get to the Red Port, if you can infiltrate the Bondolas and hide, and you get up to the top, and okay, you've infiltrated Marijois, right? So it doesn't seem like that difficult to get into the Holy Land. Now, gaining access into the castle might be a little difficult. Security is a little bit more heightened there. Also, I would assume, and this is the other crazy thing about Rox being there, we know that the Gorosei are really powerful and they have haki. You know, we know Marcus Mars, you know, was walking around, you know, Punk Records, spewing off the Conqueror's haki, knocking out all of the Den Mushi and everything as he went. So, you know, they have Conquerors. They all have that. They would also all have armament and observation, right? So if, like, a really powerful person like Rox D motherfucking Zebek walks into the castle, you'd think immediately the Gorosei would, like, my Spidey sense is tingling. My Marcus Mars sense is tingling. You know, you'd feel like immediately, even Eam would probably feel some weird vibes are off. You know, it'd be like, what's going on here, okay? So infiltrating the castle, probably another issue with that, right? Okay. But not impossible. Like, Sabo was able to do it. Sabo was able to get into the empty throne room, and he was able to infiltrate, and they weren't able to detect him. That's another thing, too, yeah. The Gorosei, Sabo was just hiding behind a pillar, and then the Gorosei didn't even know he was back there. Eam didn't even know he was back there. Emu, ruler of the entire world, it was like, I do not know that there is a person hiding behind a pillar right over there. Didn't know. So, you know, I always wondered if there's a way to hide yourself from haki, like Zetsu in Hunter x Hunter with Nen. Like, if there's a variant of observation where you could, like, turn off your presence, or you're just really good at, like, non-detection, something like that. I don't know. Maybe there is. I mean, there has to be some way to just hide really well, because these should be, by all intents and purposes, the Gorosei and Emu should be like the 6 best users of hockey, or in the top class of hockey in the entire world. And they did not know Sabo was hiding behind a pillar right over there to their right. So it's like, okay. So I guess it isn't that hard to sneak in, I suppose, right? So I guess that's not that big of a deal. So at any rate, yeah, Rox got into Castle Pangea, and he found the Room of Flowers, and he went into there. All right, so what was the overall goal? Now, we know that Rox wants to be king of the world. We heard as much before. But what was, like, the logistics of this goal is what I'm talking about. Like, what was Rox exactly planning on doing? Because he had a pistol. Was he literally planning on just, I'm going to walk into the Room of Flowers, shoot Emu in the head, and then I become the new king of the world? I don't think that would work even if Emu wasn't immortal. You know what I mean? Like, even if Emu would have been able to die from just a simple bullet, you know, I don't think Rox immediately, like the Gorosei burst in and was like, oh no, Lord Emu, you're dead! And Rox is like, yep, and I'm the new ruler of the world. Well, looks like time for a change of management. I'm Rox D. Zebek. I'm the new ruler of the world. Nice to meet you. You know, go and grab me a diet soda. What kind of soda would Rox D. Zebek drink? Let me know. So, yeah, I don't think that would work. I don't think the Gorosei would just be like, yeah, we're not going to listen to you. And I don't think the Marines would be like, yeah, we're just going to listen to you. And all of the world government would be like, yeah, we're just going to listen to you now because you killed our rulers. So, yeah. So that doesn't sound like a great plan. You know what I mean? Like, you just walk in, shoot Emu, he dies, and then you just take over. Now, Rox has enough power to make that happen, and I guess you could argue that if Emu dies, the Gorosei might die as well. There would still be a lot of other people you would probably have to contend with. Like, Kong bursts in, giant barrel chest, and he's just like, oh, how dare you! And then Rox is like, you have to listen to me now, and Kong is like, I think not! And then Kong and Rox fight. That would have been really cool to see. I want to see Kong do something cool, right? Okay. Now, he probably tried, because he does have the gun. I mean, why wouldn't you at least try to kill Emu, right? Like, even if it's like 99.9999% sure it's not gonna work, it couldn't possibly be this easy, you're gonna at least attempt, you know? So maybe Rox walks in and just empties the gun trying to kill Emu, just boom, 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 and Emu's just covered with bullets and just glorps back together and just be like, did you really think it would be that easy? Had to give it a shot, right? Just like puts the gun down. He's like, well, you know, I had to try, right? But the thing is, Rox had other methods of fighting. Rox did not just use a pistol. Rox was a swordsman. He had a sword, as swordsmen tend to do. And he had this very unique sword style that blows everything away like a cannon, right? And so, does he also have a devil fruit? He might have a devil fruit. The sword might have had a devil fruit. He has Conqueror's Haki. The craziest thing about this scene here is they're just talking. They're just communicating with each other. It's crazy. Emu and Rox have a relatively healthy relationship, honestly. They're just like, hey, let's sit down and have a conversation. I brought a chair. Let's just sit down and talk, you know, about, you know, hey, I want to be king of the world. You are currently king of the world. What can we do here, you know? And, yeah, that's how that goes. Now, there was also some extortion going on because Rox did kidnap 5 kings, but Emu doesn't really care about them, so not really much of an extortion if the person you're trying to extort can't be extorted, you know? So it's like, it's fine, right? But my point is, like, they're not in the middle of a giant battle. It's not like Rox pulled out a sword and like, well, the pistol didn't work. Time to use my special technique. Roar! And then he goes for the sword. And then there's Haki spewing off of Rox and Haki spewing off of Emu. And they're clashing in the flower room. And the flower room is shaking. And all of Castle Pangea is shaking. And the whole red line is shaking. You know, like, that would be the kind of thing. Like, the thing that just happens after this, like, the next page is Harald and Rox clashing at Marijois. You know, their swords are reverberating, and like the Haki is so strong it knocks out everybody in a 5-kilometer radius. Right? Which I hear in freedom units, that's around 3 miles. Okay? So like, The fact that that's not happening, there's no massive scars or craters in the flower room like a giant battle just ensued or something like that, which means whatever the goal was in terms of like how Rox was going to get it done, he realized pretty quickly he couldn't. He went in there, maybe he tried something, or he realized it's like the best way I've had this compared was that somebody said this is like Rox trying to speed run the campaign of a video game without doing all of the side quest stuff. It's like playing Final Fantasy. Like most Final Fantasy games, if you go through the whole game without doing any of the side quests and get all the weapons and level ups and get all the cool like additional stuff, you're probably not going to win the campaign against like the final boss. At least that was the problem I had when I was playing Final Fantasy X back in high school. I didn't do any of the bonus stuff and I got to Jet and I just couldn't win. So it's like I didn't level anybody up enough. So it's like maybe it's like that where Rox got there and he just he realized immediately like this isn't going to work. The idea of me coming in here and just murdering the king of the world and taking over, that's not going to be the way it works. And I'm not even going to waste my energy even trying, okay? It's also possible Rox could have attempted to attack Emu, but Emu does have the ability that we've seen with Sabo to enlarge themselves and like eat attacks. So Sabo's, he used Fire Fist and then Rook check to try to attack Em, and then Emu just like ate the fire. So maybe Rox did burst into the room of flowers with his barrel chest and his sword, and he was like, "Raw!" And he unleashed a giant Conqueror's Haki Getsuga Tensho at Emu, and then Emu was just like, oh, and just ate it, and then that was it. And then Rox was like, oh. And then the Haki just goes away immediately, and he's like, oh, okay, well. Pew, pew. It's like, that didn't work. It's like, all right, well. That's how that goes, right? Okay, so what exactly was like the step-by-step process on what we were going with here? Now, Rox also kidnapped 5 kings. So the idea was, okay, I'm going to try to, like, extort Emu? Extort Emu into what? Like, I have these 5 kings over here. Let me be king of the world or I'm going to shoot them all. Was that the plan? And Emu's like, that won't work. And even under, like, other circumstances, that probably wouldn't work. Like, even if Emu wasn't immortal, that probably wouldn't have worked, right? And then Rox has a line where he says, yeah, I suppose that wouldn't work, but hey, your Holy Land is in panic right now. That one might just be more petty, if anything, right? Like, maybe Rox realized he couldn't do anything to get rid of Emu, but Rox was like, yeah, but I could cause absolute chaos outside. It's like the best I could do, but that's what I'm going to do kind of thing, right? So maybe. So it's also very important to bring up Emu's demeanor during this entire meeting. When Emmett released the hockey nuke way back at Egghead, right? Emu was, like, beside themselves. Emu was, like, broke out into the flop sweats and was just like, joy, boy! It was, like, freaking out. It was, like, trembling at the feeling of this hockey reverberating, right? And it wasn't even right next to Emu. I guess it hit the Gorosei, and so maybe Emu felt it through the Gorosei. But, like, that was insane, right? Like, Emu was genuinely afraid. Emu does not look afraid here. Emu just seems completely unbothered. Emu is in the flower room, playing with their pet butterflies. Gunko is there. Gunko does not look scared or afraid. Gunko is not sweating or trembling or like, what's going to happen here? Or Emu is just like, oh, I'm afraid of what's going to happen. No, Emu's just playing with the butterflies and just having a casual conversation with Rox. It's like, you cannot use the lives of mere kings to, extort me. They are no threat to me. Like, that's not how that works here, right? Emu is making it very abundantly clear, like, even if Rox were to murder every king at the Reverie, it's not going to work. Emu's the boss. Emu's the one that sits on the empty throne, and they know it, okay? So that's not going to work. So, yeah, Rox isn't scared either. Rox is also just chilling out, but it's just like, it's like there's an invisible wall between them. You know what I mean? Like, there's this giant invisible barrier between Rox and Emu, and it's like Emu knows that Rox can't do anything to the barrier. It's like this perfect stalemate, I guess, where it's like, I know you can't do anything to me, and I can't do anything to you. So we could just chill out here and have a conversation. Doors over there whenever you want to leave. Overall, this is Emu's house. Rox did break into Emu's house, right? So, what was the ultimate reason that Rox could not fulfill his plan right here? You could just say the immortality aspect, and you also could say that the dynamics of the world government were more complicated than he originally assumed. Like, if he did not know Emu existed, if he thought he was going to come in and just murder 5 old dudes that had no abilities, then yeah, I could see Rox being taken aback by, like, oh, the Gorosei are actually demon monsters. Oh, they're not actually even the rulers of the world. Oh, it's actually this shadowy person. Oh, they actually have the ability to absorb any attack I throw at them. Huh. All right, that throws a wrench into the works a little bit there. Yeah, I'm going to come back later, and I'm going to rethink this a little bit, and then we'll see what happens. You know, I could understand that, or maybe it's something beyond the immortality, beyond the structure and everything like that. I heard a thing, and it does make sense. We've talked about this before a little bit. Can Emu leave Castle Pangea? And if Emu cannot leave Castle Pangea, if Emu is, like, stuck there, is it because of Emu's own desire to do that, or their power? Like, their power only works if they remain in that position. Now, they can possess others as, like, puppets. That's what we saw with Gunko, and they also have the Gorosei and all that stuff. But Emu, as in the main body themselves, cannot leave Castle Pangea. It would be interesting if that was under their own ability, like that's the drawback of their power. Or another way of looking at it, we talked about this in a live stream, is what if Emu is like sealed in Castle Pangea by like Joy Boy or somebody, Davy Jones or whoever, sealed Emu inside of Castle Pangea. So that's the reason, like, even Rox showing up is like I can't die while I'm in the bounds of Castle Pangea, and I also cannot leave Castle Pangea. Or maybe something would happen if I left or something like that. And Rox was just like, oh, okay. You know, it's like Rox immediately knew that Emu was not lying, and Rox, regardless of whatever Emu told Rox, Rox immediately understood the situation. Rox understood the situation to the point where Rox was chilling out, sitting down, and just having a conversation. All right, she's like, all right, I understand. It's not going to work out with this. I'm like, okay. So there's an idea there. And then here's the other question, like, why did Emu just not attack Rox? We know Emu can fight. We know Emu can turn into a giant monster. The Gorosei would have been here. The Gods Knights would have been here. Why did Emu not turn into like, you know, the giant monster and try to attack Rox? You could say, well, maybe Emu was afraid of Rox. It was, well, Emu doesn't really seem afraid of Rox. Emu doesn't seem trembling and scared, you know, or anything like that. It's just they're both not attacking one another, and it's really weird. And I like that from a storytelling perspective, because that's basically Oda saying to us, whatever's going on here with Emu and their powers and whatever the situation is overall, like where the Domi Reversi powers come from and how Emu is even here right now and who Emu even really is, it goes beyond just shonen battle manga shenanigans. It goes beyond just like the tried and true Goku method of just hit them really hard and the problem goes away. You know, this is something else. And it would be crazy if Emu tells Rox, like, yeah, I'm not here by my own free will. This is something else going on that extends even beyond me. If we're getting gods, like actual gods involved in One Piece, what if it was a god that, like, forced Emu into this position, or Emu way back in the day in the Second Age, like, beseeched a god to help them win the Void Century War or something, and the god gave them the power, but in the monkey paw-esque way of, like, I'll give you the power, but you will then also become immortal. I'm like, oh, and maybe at the time Emu was like, oh, maybe it was Emu Norona, was like, oh, yeah, I want to be immortal, that sounds great, and then after the first couple of centuries, Emu was like, oh, God, this is so boring, and they're stuck in the castle. So it's sort I'll make you immortal. I'll make you the immortal ruler of the world for all time. Except you are immortal and you can't sleep and you're stuck in the same location for 900 years or 800 years. Have fun. And then so Emu's like saying to Rox, like, this is beyond my power, man. This is something else. This is like a literal actual god on high put me in this position. I have no say in this. You know? And so Rox is like, shit, all right, didn't plan on that. All right, I'll come back after I figure out how to kill a god. It can't be that hard, right? Emu's like, good luck. Have fun. You know, that's how it goes. Now, Rox says, I'm going to leave, and he does. But he also says, I will be back. I'll be back. So we can assume Rox's plan after he leaves the Reverie 56 years ago, everything that builds up to him gathering his crew with the Davy back and launching an attack on Hachinosu to take it over, and eventually, well, maybe not God Valley. God Valley was maybe something separate, but all of this stuff was in preparation to take down Emu. So it was like all of the different pieces of the plan were that. He had to have all these strong, heavy hitters on his crew. He had to have Whitebeard and Shiki and Wang and Gonzui and Don Marlin. He had to have all these people on his crew. It's like, okay, I'm going to gather a really strong crew of crazy, powerful characters. I'm like, okay, awesome. Then I'm going to take over Hachinosu from the government, and I'm going to gain a bunch of capital in the process because there's, like, gold deposits there, okay? That's another step of the plan. So, like, he eventually talks about this to Harald, where I think he just talks about bringing down Marijois. There's no authority in the world that lasts forever. Let's go, Harald. If we team up, we're unbeatable. He says, I'll wipe out the Navy and bring the Holy Land to its knees, and in the end, I'll be the king of the world. So, like, in the original translation I reviewed, it was like, I'm going to collapse Marijois. Like, I'm going to burn Marijois to the ground, or I'm going to bring it to the ground. Here, he just kind of more, like, metaphorically mentions that, like, I am going to make the world government, the Marines, Marijois, like, kneel before me. Like, they will realize I am superior, kind of thing, right? So, I bring this up because, like, is the plan to literally destroy the Holy Land? Because I don't even know if that would work. You know what I mean? It's like, I was like, oh, Emu can't leave the castle. Let's bring the castle to the ground and see what happens. You know, I don't think it was going to be that simple to just do that. Also, I think Rox could have probably just done that while he was there, right? So there's this plan, this multi-step plan, and I think the thing that screwed it up was God Valley. All right, so he takes over 44 years ago. He takes over Hachinosu, sets it up as his pirate island, right? He has the Rocks pirates established. Kaido's there, Big Mom's there, Whitebeard's there, Wang is there, everybody's there. And then a few years after that, we know that the Celestial Dragons, or rather probably the Gods Knights, snuck into Hachinosu, stole some powerful devil fruits, took them to God Valley. That's when they go to God Valley to get them back. What if the reason why they were so dead set on getting them back, I mean, they went full force. What if the Ua Ua no Mi model Azure Dragon, which is Kaido's fruit, and the Pawpaw fruit, which was Kuma's fruit, and maybe some other devil fruits were there too. There were like 6 different treasure chests. We know Shanks ended up in one of them, and we was maybe just some gold and diamonds and others, but there might have been more devil fruits. What if all of those pieces were integral for Rox's plan? Like, he needed to have the Ua Ua no Mi, and he needed to have the Pawpaw fruit, and the fact that they were stolen means, oh no, we have to go full force to get those back. We cannot enact the strategy for everybody, to invade Marijois and for Emu to die and for Rox to be king of the world. We can't do that if we don't have those devil fruits, right? The Pawpaw fruit and the Ua Ua no Mi would have definitely made accessing Marijois pretty damn simple, right? So what if they had to go to God Valley to get them back, and then that's when Garp showed up, and that's when Roger showed up, and it turned into a whole freaking chaos, smorgasbord of just, battle, blood and sweat and tears, and there's this massive war, and that's where Rox purportedly died, okay? Now, Rox is also the father of Blackbeard, maybe Buggy too, so his, legend lives on, and we see that later with Emu holding up the wanted posters of Luffy and also Marshall D. Teach and slicing them up and being like, oh, okay, makes sense for Luffy because Luffy is like the reincarnation of Joy Boy, or has Joy Boy's devil fruit, and then Marshall D. Teach is the son of Zebek, who was the only person up until that point to break into the flower room, So there's still like a legend that lives on here, whether it be literally like Rox's soul is inside of Blackbeard, or just Blackbeard carries on the lineage that his father had, or Blackbeard found Rox's logbook or his diary or something like that. Like, dear diary, today I went into Marijois and saw the king of the world. He lives in a flower room. There were lots of butterflies. I like butterflies. That's that, right? I was like, no. It could be something like that, though. Could have been. By the way, Oda has gotten his hands on one of those emu plushies, the big one. I'm going to see if I can find one as well, because that would be a nice addition to the room. And Oda's been taking a bunch of pictures of his, office. If you've ever seen images of Oda's office, it's insane. He has, a giant shark on the wall and everything. So he's putting pictures up of Emu, and in some of those pictures, you can see like artwork off to the side that looks like the design of what Emu is going to be. I think Emu's actual appearance is going to be revealed soon in the story, and looks like Emu is a woman, kind of resembles like the Statue of Liberty, or like, you know, the lady bringing liberty and stuff, like holding the torch aloft and everything like that. Sort of, is that the general design of the sketch art? But we don't know. Oda might also just be trolling us too. We're not sure, but I think we're probably going to learn about emus soon. I'm feeling like finally emu's going to step out of the shadows and the silhouette, and we'll see what they look like. And that's going to also be a crazy panel, I am sure. Anyway, that's the video for today. Let me know on all that stuff that I mentioned about Rocks, and, you know, did he know about Emu, and how did he invade, and what was the plan here, and now that plan didn't work, why didn't it work, and what's the new plan, and did God Valley mess all that up? Was the pawpaw fruit and the Ua Uenomi like integral for this? Which means we're gonna need Kaido. Kaido's gonna have to come back, or his fruit's gonna have to reincarnate. We have Momonosuke too. Momonosuke might actually work out for this too. He also has an Ua Uenomi. And then the pawpaw fruit is still technically wielded by the PX0, by Kuma. He's just brain dead right now. So maybe if he actually does die, maybe the fruit will reincarnate and Vivi can get it. That's a theory that's been around for a while. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking, signing out. Later. And just remember, if you ever encounter the king of the world in a giant castle in a nice pretty flower room, make sure to have some backup plans, I guess. You know, Rocks was just full steam ahead. He didn't like think of the options. You know, what if the ruler of the world is an immortal god? You know, what if, you know, I have to have a plan for that, right? Like, okay. Later, everybody.